Hi there, I'm Holly Sin, and welcome to Heartmind Live. This is a live recording of a Heartmind theory talk, as well as a demonstration of the first 3 steps in my 7-step method, where we're going to start. And I'm going to go through the theory first. We're going to do a demo. I'm going to talk about the program and share that with you here today. Okay, welcome. This is Heartmind Live. It's a transforming process. So we're trauma transforming. Yes, it takes sensitivity. Yes, it takes awareness, but we're really geared towards the goal of transforming the trauma with yoga and with breath work. And I'm going to talk about that as well as giving you, again, a live demo of that. So many people feel like their mind is working against them, or their mind and their body are working against each other. They have racing thoughts, anxiety, sleepless nights, and then their body is in a lot of fatigue and pain. There's burnout, exhaustion, like this is the way of the world at this point. And like I said, a lot of body pain, chronic fatigue in women is just on the rise. We can put fibromyalgia in that as well, which they often go together. And that's something I've worked with a lot as well with women. And feeling like you've lost joy or passion or purpose for your life. And then you feel victim to triggers of the past, especially with trauma, or intruding thoughts even of the future, intruding anxiety-driven thoughts. So what is this system? What is the Heartmind? This is a somatic chakra and meridian systematic pathway that brings the mind back into the body with the heart as the center of both the body and the mind. So I'll talk about this a little bit more. Sometimes I talk about the solar plexus, Manipura, if you know the chakra system, the upper core being the physical center, but it really supports and is right underneath the heart. So the heart is that spiritual center together. The small intestines and the heart are working together at the center of our being. And this uses body awareness, movement, breath work, and it's going to give you embodied tools to shift mental patterns. It shows you how to trust this system. It's going to make a lot of sense as you feel it. And this is the asset given to you as a birthright to process your life. Okay? And it gives you this method to feel, digest, and transform or metabolize mental material. This is what is causing illness is the accumulation of mental material and unable to process that or digest that. It happens when we see physical illness, when we're not able to digest certain nutrients, sugars, or able to digest food, and it accumulates. It causes digestive issues, and we all know this can create a lot of unhealthiness, both physically but also mentally. The same true is for our mental digestion. And then there's a lack of spiritual connection when that happens as well. Yoga is the mental spiritual connection above all else. And the body is a lot more used in the medical system in India, Ayurveda. We do use the body, but more as force and energy, rather than trying to change it biologically or heal it with ingesting substances, for example. Okay, so I started using this Heartmind and calling it Heartmind method because we're really taught that the mind is in the head. And I even do this, right? Like I point to my head when I'm talking about the mind. And we're taught to hold it all together and kind of try to rationalize through, push through emotions, don't listen to emotions, so we can function. And then life becomes really overwhelming and thoughts turn into it. High anxiety, which turns to burnout. And again, we start to hurt in our bodies. And then we have the recoil effect of needing to numb out, not having a pathway to actually process those emotions. So there's no time to digest what we feel. So we keep moving like a robot through until we just break down. And that's usually when I end up meeting people, not always. Sometimes it's preventative, but a lot of times I'm meeting people in that kind of, they've exhausted that pathway of how they were taught, in a productive society to keep moving, and they need a new way. What are chakras and meridians? Now, I've been tossing around this word, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't. Maybe there's this inkling of knowing kind of what it is. Maybe you've studied them at length. But the way that I talk about it is that a chakra is a place in your body where your psychology collects, your psyche collects certain vibrational meanings to your life and how to live your life. And yoga often is seen as physical, obviously, in our culture, but it really is where our psychology and spiritual pathway lies. And it deals much more with the going towards our mind being prepared for spiritual connection, whereas the yoga medicine system of Ayurveda uses things to ingest, to heal, like a doctor, and works with our biology, trying to shift biological tissues to start to help heal and create health. So it's really focused on the mind and having us feel connection with spirit, nature, however you want to say that. Chakras are coming from that yoga lineage, whereas meridians are coming from TCM or traditional Chinese medicine. And I use those pathways because they're much more codified, easier to work with. Yoga does have those pathways, but they're much more complex. So that's why I mix the two. And this has been a huge part of my learning, as well as my contribution to yoga therapy, mixing these elements and centers and pathways to start to shift our mind and live more in our bodies. So what I see traditionally, and I get this a little bit from Anodea Judith, who is a scholar in the chakras, but I apply it to both chakras and meridians, is I see either depletion or excess. And this is a dynamic system. So it's not just one or the other. You could be vacillating between the two, where you have too much energy or not enough energy in a chakra. I very rarely use the word a stuck chakra. Just going to let you know that. It's more about how dynamically the energy is flowing. This is important because I want you to know that for a decade now, I've been harnessing this method, and I've been working with 100+ women. I work primarily with doctors and psychiatrists, and then also with healers and entrepreneurs that are in that healing world. And we deepen their yoga and their breath and start to shift their mind so they're more present for themselves and for their clientele or students. And I have seen this method transform their lives at the root level. Sometimes that does require obviously other healthcare support, medication, these types of things, but we're starting to change it also at the root level of the mind. And in my experience, there's no better way to invite real grounded transformation and empower your body with life than to go to these centers, bring your energy home to these centers and spread it through the limbs and collect it from the limbs. So this is the Heartmind system. Here is one psychiatrist. She is a head of a hospital here at her community, Hannah Lake. And she says, I've been working with Holly for 2 years now. This year is actually going into 3. She wrote this a year ago. I consider it to be fundamental to my understanding of myself and my well-being. She challenges in a way that is transformative and gentle. There's that word, transformative. That's important. So what we do is we create a home in each chakra. And there's a system that I follow. So the first part of the system is creating that foundation. Every great home needs that foundation, and it's accountability, showing up with sincerity and receptivity. The Yoga Sutras, an ancient text, talks about this, and it's the very first sutra, just like the foundation is the very first thing we have to set, right, in a home. And it says, Atta Yoga Nushasanam. It's okay if you don't like Sanskrit, or if it sounds like googly glop to you, that's okay. But what it's saying is, now when we show up with this type of sincerity and ability to receive information, being open to receiving information, now transformation can take place. And so that is fundamental, and it is the base. Then we work with 4 major pillars, and think of these like the walls of your home. Boundaries, huge. very earthy element. Emotional intelligence, trusting and building intelligence around our emotions. This is a very watery and sometimes airy experience. Forgiveness. This is key. It's a healing elixir for the wounds that we've been collecting. And lastly, acknowledgement. This is a huge, powerful practice that I've seen and developed over, especially the last couple of years, really start to shift women into really stepping into their light. And that's the whole point, is to step into that acknowledgement of yourself. And then there's the shelter or the roof of our home. And this is a mixture of faith and trust. There's this beautiful word in Sanskrit called shraddha. It's one of my favorites. Shraddha. And it mixes faith and trust. So it's an optimistic knowing that I trust the system and know that the system is going to grow me and transform me. There has to be that sense of faith. And, all great religions talk about faith, and this doesn't have to be necessarily, it's not a religion, but a spiritual process requires faith. And it's not necessarily how, exactly, you might not always understand the how, but there's this faith that if I show up, if I contribute to these pillars, then I can also create a shelter for myself knowing that I'm on my path. All right, so I'm going to share with you now the first 3 steps of this process. And I'm going to just give a little taste. It's not the whole of it, okay? But I want you to feel it and experience it. And I want to say that I've already ran a seed group, a founders group of this. After doing individuals, I've started a groups of doing Heartmind. And every physical body is different. So I'm going to offer some things, and I'm going to show you maybe at points a couple of modifications. One member even was in a hospital bed for most of the group time. So I am really good about finding the modifications and variations that is best for one's body. All right, the first step in this system is to move energy downward and receive nourishment. To move energy downward and receive nourishment. This is going into the very base chakra. I'm going to demonstrate, and you're more than welcome to follow me. So you're going to come to stand if you can. And just take a moment to look down to your feet and make sure they're about parallel and on the same line. And I like a wider stance, maybe about as wide as your hips. And you're going to touch your thighs and keep your hands on your thighs. You're also going to keep looking down, but if that's too much on your neck, you can go forward with the gaze, looking down though. And what you're going to do is very simple, and it doesn't have to be very deep. You're going to exhale, feel the exhale come, and then just have a squat. Bend your knees, and that might just be a tiny bend. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, squat. Maybe for some of us, that's a little deeper. So we feel that squat in our legs. Inhale, coming up. I know what you're going to think as you keep going, and you're going to exhale, go down, and inhale, go up. This is really simple. But simplicity and the mundane is part of the earth chakra and earth element. And what I'm going to invite you to do as you breathe, you're connecting to your breath. At any point, if it feels like you want to sigh, then do. You're going to exhale and bring that energy down. With your inhale, be a little more passive and feel the pillars of your legs lengthening. When I say passive, passive with your breath. With your exhale, you're pushing the energy down. Inhale, back up. And you're purposely looking down, sending your consciousness, your energy down. And you're keeping your gaze, your hands down. Now, this next part might Be a little more difficult, and you're practicing. Remember, it's just a practice. So keep going, and now see if on your inhale, you can lift the pelvic floor. Lift your pelvic floor. And then on the exhale, as you go down, this is important, release the pelvic floor. And as you're going down, feel as though energy is seeping through the soil. And as you inhale, you're lifting up, lift up through the arches, lift up through your pelvic floor. As you exhale, feel as though you're seeping through layers and layers of soil, this energy, this release downward. And this is called Apana Vayu. It's the elimination. And that's one of our ways that we need to move energy in order to digest it. We need to eliminate it. So we're inviting whatever can right now to move downward and be eliminated, be given to the soil. At any point, you could go lower with your squatting, or you could go higher with your squatting. What you can sustain, we're going to go even slower if you can. Moving the pelvic floor if you can, up. And then just as important, if not even more important right now, is the release and the seeping, going one more minute. Feels long. That slow, mundane length of time is really important with this. One more time. One more time, squat down. When you come back up, maybe you close your eyes or keep your gaze soft. Hold your thighs, stop, and notice where your consciousness is. Notice where your energy is. I'm guessing you feel your legs. I'm guessing that it feels like you're more connected to your feet. I'm not guessing. I know through doing this with many people. And one more step here, receiving the nourishment. So you can use a wall. You could also do this on your side if you're in a bed or needing to lie down. You don't need the wall. You don't need the wall. It is a little balance. You're going to balance on your right leg. You could also not bind. You could use a strap or a bathrobe kind of strap, a belt, something around the waist if you can't grab the leg. You can do it without grabbing the leg. And you're still going to get this stretched, okay? And that's the point. So find what you need, take your time. You could even pause the video to take the time if you're wanting to do this or just watch. And you're trying to take your opposite hands to the thigh, and you're holding and receiving. These muscles in our thigh are huge resources. And we're going to try to inhale and feel the length, maybe draw the knee down more, the kneecap as though it's being pulled down. And just for about a minute, we're breathing and receiving. Feel as though your belly is growing big, belly breathe, receiving the nourishment of your life. We do this often with our morning ritual. We're asking ourselves to receive the nourishment of the day, both food and experience. May we receive that. Three more breaths. And after your 3 breaths, big inhales, release. You need to pause, roll out that ankle that you are standing on. And then we definitely want to do the other side. Stepping and grounding into the left leg, reaching and grabbing. The other, again, you can do this with a strap. That could be just a household belt. It doesn't have to be a proper yoga strap. And then you're taking the opposite hand to the hip flexor and thigh and breathing there. There is a meridian that runs right through here. So we're breathing into that, lengthening it and giving it our attention, our energy, our life force, our prana. And stretching the kneecap down. You don't have to pull too strong. It can be soft. Receiving the nourishment in this moment, and then also taking that out towards your day, the rest of whatever today is, whatever nourishment you can receive from the day. Three more breaths. You might notice my breaths are quite long, so it might be a little longer for you. And then releasing. Maybe rolling the ankle out. That's the first step, but take a moment. Notice what it's like to move your energy down and receive nourishment, even just that brief moment. Setting accountability, showing up, doing it. You have to do it. So if you haven't, I really strongly suggest that you do it in order to show up into that chakra. And then we talk about in this, one of the pillars we talk about is forgiving the earth. Forgiving the earth. For whatever reason, you need to forgive the earth. Maybe it's for being here in this body. Maybe there's something else you feel like you need to forgive the earth. And or perhaps there's a seeking of forgiveness from the earth. Tune into that. And just that little touch point will start to move that forgiveness elixir to any subconscious wounds you might be holding between you and the earth. 3 more breaths. And then releasing. Okay, that's one of the aspects of the first step. How did it go? Leave a comment. Talk to me. I'm curious. Bring it. I want to know. Let's move on, though, to the second step. All right, step 2. We're going into the water, going up the chakra system into the water chakra. We want to circulate energy. When we start circulating energy, often what happens is we start circulating emotion. But we want to circulate energy and receive. Notice there's always kind of a way to move energy and receive. There's the 2 sides of the coin. We want to receive duality, and I usually do this with specific things, and I'll share that with you today. All right, so we're going to go back to standing. You could also do this in a seat if you need. Same kind of stance, feet hips distance, parallel, check in, and you're going to hold your pelvis, hold your hips, wherever it feels or however it feels right to you. And then you're going to move your pelvis forward so that you're leaning a little more into the balls of your feet and tuck your tailbone so the pelvis and the bones are going more forward. So here's my regular stance, and then I'm going to tuck my tailbone and go forward. This could be bigger for some people. It could be quite small for others. And then as I exhale, softness in the knees, I'm going to go to one side. So I'm going to go either side. I'm going to kind of stick out the hip and stick out my bum back and come forward, lift the tailbone. And then you're rolling to the other side. It sounds simple, but feel into your pelvis and your hips circling around the pelvis over the feet. And if you can, you're moving, inhale forward, exhale back. Inhale forward, exhale back. Now, see if you can do this, circulating the pelvis. And notice your breath and see if you can let it flow like a wave or current of water so that there's no pause, no gap. And this is that circular breath where it circulates to the inhale, which bleeds and circulates to the exhale. You don't have to do this with your arm. I'm just doing it, right? To demonstrate what's happening in the breath. There's no pause, there's no gap. And the circle in your hips are following that. Again, we do it for quite a little while to feel the circulation. And then you're going to go the other way. And let that, if you could, be a bit seamless. This also tends to free up my sacrum and my SI joints. I feel a little bit of a release, which is really where the start of the physical domain of the chakra is, in the sacrum. And then the lumbar spine. I talk about this quite a bit. It said that the emotions are born of the heart, but then if we're not circulating them through the body, they get stuck here. That's why oftentimes you'll hear yoga teachers talk about our emotions live in our hips because we haven't processed and moved them downwards. So downward is also the flow of the water chakra. Think about our urination, how it is eliminated downward. That's the same thing. And so we want to eliminate or bring energy downward still, but circulate it. Let it circulate and move down. Going a couple more breaths, a couple more circles. Your circle might have stayed real small. And then come back to center and hold your hips still, hold your sacrum, maybe wherever it feels on your pelvis and your hips you want to hold. And just notice what comes up for you. And for this next one, you might want a blanket for your knee. We're going to come into a little lunge. You're going to come down, exhale, bend down, and step one leg back and ground the back knee. There is a way to do this other ways. So if you need more support, please just message me, let me know. That's what people do in the group, and I always give more support. And then you could have one hand down or you could have both hands up if that's better. It's really small, but we're going to do little circles again. It could be really small circles. Same thing. You're going to inhale forward, exhale back. And the side to side, if it's destabilizing, you could walk your foot wider and you could go smaller with your circles. If you have the hand down, you could also use a book or a block with the hand, and that might help stabilize you. Try not to put too much pressure on the arm. Circulating one direction several times. trying to find that circular breath. And here I find people get even more stuck with the circulation, and that's okay. We want to take breath to that sense of stuckness. Taking breath there in one direction, then move the other way. Be mindful of the knee, but it might want to grow larger, it might not. How's the breath? Do you find yourself gripping or holding in the breath? Notice I haven't mentioned breathing through the nose. You can breathe either through the nose or mouth, whichever will start to move and help support the circular breath and the circulation in your hips. And then one or two more times in this direction. And then when you're ready, you're gonna walk that foot back. If you need a little movement in your pelvis before you come opposite foot forward, same idea, you could come up, you could stay down with that one arm, and you're circling in the hip. Starting with your breath, inhale forward, exhale back. Simple, but really, if you start to feel into your hip, marry the movement with the breath. Let it flow so that there's no pause. And if your mind starts to wander, usually you'll notice there's a hold, there's a stop of the circulation. So we have to be here. It requires us to be here. I'm showing different variations of depth. More depth isn't necessarily right. If you go too deep, too fast, it will cause injury. So really, you need to tune into your breath. And this is why it could be really important to get more support if you're unsure. And then one or two more times before you move direction and feel the flow and your rhythm change directions. It seems simple, but it's so important. Are you here? Is your presence here? Sticking with the practice. Going just a little longer on this side. And then it becomes almost like a kriya, a repetitive action where we start to learn about ourselves through the repetition. Okay, last one, two, or three times you choose. And then if you can, what you're doing is you're going to step forward back into the fold. And then you're going to roll up and see if you can let your upper body hang a bit. Coming back to the hips, back where we started. Either eyes soft or closed, and notice what you feel. And we ask the question, what if all emotions are here for your good? What if all emotions are intelligent and here for your good? They want the best for you. Would you let them in and let yourself feel them? And what are you feeling? Good. It's an example of step 2. The other thing that we want to receive, so we are receiving our emotions, is that duality. So I invite you to take your moment here. Again, you could hold your hips or come to prayer, because it is a prayer that I learned. And as you feel that emotion and feel it, that pillar of emotional intelligence, allowing that to be a strength and structure in you, you can say to yourself with that prayer, I am healing and I am healed. Say it out loud. I invite you to notice what it feels like when you say it out loud. I am healing and I am healed. Both. I have released the past, and yet I am still healing from it. There's a duality here of in process and transformed at the same time. Gently opening the eyes. And we work in depth with that prayer. It has been one of the most important prayers of my life in recovering from trauma. Okay, last step, we're going to go through one more. We're going into the fire. Create your warrior and receive your responsibility. Woo, that's tough. And it is a bit of a tough one, coming into our core, the core of our physical being. And we feel it in our abdomen. I'm going to go into one aspect of this. And I want to say there's a lot more that happens in these steps. One of the things is we work with creativity in this one. And that's why it's create your warrior. And we're going to do that briefly here. So I'm going to invite you to, again, come to the mat, step to the mat, and we're going to go towards a wider step. And with that wider step, you're going to decide with your SI, with your hips, the gait. It doesn't have to be very long. It could be. The longer you go, the more stress or strain it's going to put on your SI joint or your low back sacrum space. You're going to go out with your right toes. So you're turning the hip out. And then you're going to exhale and squat down into your warrior. And for this warrior, we're going to hold our upper abdomen right in the solar plexus, right where that fire is. And then I invite you to do something called Ujjayi breath. We even go into bigger Kriya breaths with this fire. But this, we're going to build just Ujjayi breath. And you're going to inhale, breathe in through the nose. And exhale, use some force, feel your abdomen. And create a little constriction in your throat, which will warm your blood. It creates a vibration in the larynx, and it warms your blood. Inhaling and exhaling. Soften your toes. Now look over your shoulder without moving your chest. Your chest is open to the side, but you're looking forward. So open-hearted, but looking forward. And keep the Ujjayi breath. It's building a fire in your body. Now, imagine as you do this, you're already in the stance. What does your warrior look like? What does she look like? If you were a warrior, even in armor, what would it look like? Everybody's warrior is a little different. Conjure her as you breathe and you stand here in the warrior 2 stance. See her details, her hair, the color of her armor or clothing. Last 3 breaths. Stick with it, last breath. Relax or release the warrior for a moment, both in physical, inhale, lifting up, and release the vision. And then bring the toes in. Take a moment, maybe massage a little bit in that abdomen space. Release. And we'll go to the other side. So turning the opposite, you're trying to keep your chest, not necessarily the pelvis, but the chest to the side. And then holding the solar plexus, the upper abdomen above the navel. And then exhaling, squatting into your warrior stance. And that for some of us might be really long. For others, it might be quite short, like what I did in the first round. And then just notice you're not pitching too far forward, that you're leaning back a little bit so that your shoulders and your hips are aligned, and then begin the Ujjayi breath. Now we're purposely breathing through the nose and creating Ujjayi breath. The other translation of this is victorious breath. So now when you envision your warrior looking forward, breathing, imagine her victory. Imagine her, maybe that she does have a secret weapon. It could even just be her own hands. It could be something else in her hands. You want to be able to sustain this through the legs. So if you find yourself shaking, you could go a little bit more narrow in your gait. We're going to go 3 more breaths. Conjuring the warrior, the victorious warrior, creating her in your mind and breathing her into your body, into your core. After that 3rd breath, inhale, release, leg release coming in, heel toe or walk your feet underneath the hips, coming back into line. You can keep holding the center, maybe close your eyes or soften your gaze. Just notice what that felt like to strengthen Ujjayi and to strengthen into that stance, to bring forward the warrior within, or to start creating her. We do a lot of journaling and writing, but especially in this segment. So as you leave today, after the session, feel free, I invite you to write some of those details down that came to your mind, what she looked like. And I'm going to invite you to take a nice deep inhale. I'm going to do one more warrior stance. We're going to take her with us anytime she wants to kind of pop up. This time you're going to face the short edge rather than facing the long edge, or you can just step forward, but make sure you have that wider stance. So you have a little bit more like the lunge we had with that hip opening practice. Okay? And again, it could be a very short gait, and you could still be doing the warrior stance, or it could be a longer gait. And it will require a little bit more in the low back. It will require more in that back leg, the buttocks, just more. Whichever warrior you're finding, bring your hands again to the solar plexus, tuck your tailbone. And we do want to open or flare open a little bit more in the solar plexus and in the chest. So this is warrior 1. And what I'm going to invite you to do is feel more the Ujjayi, if you can, the victory of inhaling, pulling the air in with the larynx slightly constricted. And then exhale, you could do it, or you could relax if you're needing a break. But you could keep the exhale Ujjayi too, but try to also do the inhale Ujjayi. And you're receiving your prana. Take it down. Feel the ribcage expand. And you're saying to yourself, every time you expand your diaphragm and receive that prana, I receive the responsibility of this life. Keep breathing. I receive this prana that I've been given, and I know I am responsible for how I use it and receive it. So taking an inhale, receiving it consciously, this prana, this life force, your life right here is coming in. Three more breaths. A responsibility is just that ability to respond. I receive it, and I'm going to respond to it. I receive it, and I'm going to respond. Be here, present. Okay, lean forward a little bit to come out of it, stepping forward or back. Before you go to the other side, just release the breath, maybe relax the abdomen. If you did go too wide, you might move the hips. Other side, so stepping forward with the other leg, opposite leg, hips in line, legging forward, holding your solar plexus, and then tuck your tailbone and start to open. Some of us might come into a bigger back bend. Some of us might be a little bit softer. Just feel the ribs opening. As you inhale, ujjayi, or that constriction. Exhale. Constriction if you can, or if you want it to soften so that you can focus on the inhale, do that. And this is where we start to transform out of victim mentality of life, being victim to our own life. And we say, I am responsible for it. I receive it. And I know that word's tricky. We talk about it a lot. That word victim is necessary at times. But in this moment, I'm receiving my responsibility to be embodied and bring it here. And one of the responsibilities is to create boundaries. That shield of armor, the warrior. Three more breaths. And then with your exhale, coming forward when you're done with your 3 breaths, some of us are breathing slower, some of us are breathing faster, coming back to center, legs underneath, keep holding your abdomen in that same space. Relax your shoulders if you can. Sometimes I even like to hug the abdomen instead. It relaxes the arms a little bit better, so you could come to that. Hugging that warrior. And here's a question that we come to. How would your warrior really rest after battle? What happens for her? Does she come lay and receive grapes, receive nourishment? What does she do after a battle? And can you feel how she drops and receives her life? That's powerful. I hope you felt the power of that. Okay. Those are the first 3 steps. And it's only an aspect of the first 3 steps, okay? There's a little bit more involved, obviously, but it's a little taster. How are you feeling? Notice populating those 3 spaces with those qualities. How does it feel? I just want to share a few stories of people that are in the program actually right now and about to finish up. This is a case study. So Liz suffered from chronic childhood trauma. She's a psychiatrist, and she came to me back in 2020. And here are a few milestones that we've gone through in our work together. She's found more independence with her adult children. She was a single mom, and she has been able to build more boundaries and more independence for both her and her children. She has found a partner. She never thought she would do that again, and she has. But the most important thing, I think, was in a recent session, even going through all of the trauma that she has gone through, we landed in this place where she really wants to be her. And she said, she's probably never said that in her life, but we didn't even see that until, after the fact, and she said it, and we were able to break that down and really receive that. I want to be me. And imagine yourself like really, really owning that on every cellular level. I want to be me. With all of my past, with all of my future ahead of me, I want to be me, whatever age that is. It's pretty powerful. Kate is in the group as well, and I've been working with Kate in this first round of Reclaim Heartmind group. She has a spinal condition and was told by doctors never to do yoga. We kind of had a chat. She liked what I was talking about. She was hesitant, but I told her we could find modifications, we can find what she needs. And she's completely transformed her relationship with her condition. She's transformed what she knows yoga to be. She's one of the ones where I can support different variations of what we did today, for example. And now she's doing my yoga training in yoga somatics. So she's so transfixed and transformed by yoga. She wants to train and offer that to others. She's a breathwork practitioner, a healer herself. So she's adding this to her repertoire. Both of those, by the way, videos can be found on my Instagram. So please go into my Instagram to find those videos of them talking about their experience. So the Reclaim Your Heart Mind program, there's a round starting this month. It's a guided chakra by chakra journey to build that home. And we walk through the foundation, the pillars, and the shelter of each center. There's morning routines and evening routines, short, so they're not going to take up a lot of your day, but they're very potent rituals. And that's one of the things that we need to do, is start to create ritual touch points for your mind to come into these centers and spread through the meridians. There's also weekly live calls with somatic and breath practices related to chakras and real-time support. So we work for at least half of the session with real things that are coming up in people's bodies in group. And there's a community portal where we post, you're prompted to post, you're prompted to be accountable, and there's a clear structure for both the course and prompts to engage. One of the biggest healings I find is vulnerability. And I feel like this is also part of that pillar of forgiveness and emotional intelligence. Being vulnerable enough to share these things in a group with other women can be extremely powerful. I know for myself that shifted a lot. I know, for example, just one example is going back to Liz, that has shifted things for her with that chronic childhood trauma. And who it's for, if you've experienced trauma in your life, if you've experienced whether it's, we don't have to compare trauma, but if you know that there's stuck memories and the sense of being burdened by the past, then there's probably trauma there. And some of the symptoms of this is anxious, you're burning out because there's a certain way that you're dealing and holding that's no longer serving you. You're getting stuck in your head, intrusive thoughts, those types of things we talked about at the beginning. And you're ready to heal these patterns, but more importantly, transform them. You really want to move the needle. And so you're looking for trauma aware, but also, like I expressed, trauma transforming. We're wanting to move it. This is a body-based approach, not just mindset work. And it's putting, again, the mind in the body. You're willing to show up and practice, even imperfectly. Just like my slide here is a bit imperfect. All right. So the results I've seen with this work, you're going to have much more emotional resilience. At first, kind of Pandora's box is open and you feel a little less resilient, but it actually builds more resiliency. Think of a really tight muscle. As we start to hydrate it and let the emotions move, it can feel a little bit wobbly at first, but it starts to get more supple. And that's what we're looking for, resilience, suppleness. You'll get better sleep, calmer nervous system, and deeper rest. Now, of course, things happen, and that's one of the things that we're working with. When something comes and knocks you down, it doesn't mean that the system and the program doesn't work. It means now you have the tools to recover, and that's what we're building, tools to work with when we're knocked down or when we wobble. Clearer boundaries in your relationships and more trust in yourself around the relationships. That's huge. And you're feeling safer in your body, feeling safe to bring consciousness into the body. And that's where you're going to find what we call ananda, that real joy and bliss and peace. That's, in quotes, happiness. So you're going to start to feel that in your body, in your consciousness. It's an 8-week program. So what you're receiving is, again, those live group sessions. There's 3 options weekly. So usually people try to make 1. And every group, I take a survey. I survey what times work best for the group. You'll have replays of all of the sessions, so you could get supported by those and go back to a chakra if you need to one day. Weekly guided practices for this habit, the rituals I was talking about, morning and evening practices. I will include a one-on-one, okay? A one-to-one private before the program starts. So it's time. I know you're ready. You want to transform this. If you're done circling the same patterns and you're ready to build a real home in your body like we did here today, you want to live in your heart. This is your invitation, okay? Join this next group and let's begin this work together. We can even have a 15-minute chat, making sure that I can accommodate what's happening in your body. We'll do that even more in the private if booked by the 22nd. And then another great bonus here is I'm going to include 2 months of classes. This is yoga classes, which are both structural classes as well as metaphysical seasonal classes for, again, the chakras and the meridians, as well as Heartmind Yoga Nidra classes throughout the week. So I'm going to include those as part of this next cohort. If you're in, start with me with a free 20-minute conversation. It's usually about 15. If we need 20, we allot for 20. And we can feel into this together, how this is feeling for you and how we can start supporting you right away to shift what's happening. Travel well, enjoy your prana, enjoy your life force. I bow to you and I bow to it. Namaste.